Well, hello there, my fellow rushers. How are you doing today? King Rex here. Today we're gonna be continuing on with our mini-series where I just go through every single enemy in Kingdom Rush and tell you what he does and how to deal with him. So yeah, we're not gonna go in too much detail. Most of these enemies are quite simple. There are a couple of complex ones, but we'll get to them later. For now, let's just get it on. Starting off with the Desert Tug. Probably the easiest enemy in the game. 60 HP on Veteran difficulty, by the way, yeah, forgot to mention. We're doing this on Veteran difficulty, so these are the enemy settings on Veteran difficulty. So, if you're playing it on normal or casual, they're gonna have less of a threatening stats. 60 HP, 2 to 6 physical damage, no resistances to speak of, medium movement speed, and they cost 1 life each. The only problem is that they come in hordes, so how do you deal with them? Usually, tier 2 artillery is good enough combined with the barrack. That's by far the most efficient way to kill them. The Dune Raiders. These guys are actually kinda tough. 200 HP with low armor and 6 to 10 physical damage, with medium movement speed and then 1 life cost. So they're basically much tougher. Unlike the first game where the difference between an orc and a goblin was not as bad, here it actually is. So for these guys, artillery can work, but it's not the most desirable option. If they are coming up with Desert Tugs though, I'll recommend you having a low-level artillery, like a tier 2. But if you want to deal with these guys easily, I would say mages are the way to go. Archers, they're gonna do reduced damage to them, so get a couple mages or get one high tier and it should be enough to deal with them. And always use reinforcements to stall them. Desert Archers. Kind of not too threatening of an enemy, as long as you're not going for all-out barracks, because they have ranged attacks and they're gonna screw you. 180 HP, 10 to 20 physical damage, fast movement speed, and low magic resistance. So they have some resistance to magic, but for the most part, I would say artillery and archers. Especially the crossbow fort. The crossbow fort with the barrage ability upgraded, even at tier 1, is enough to delete one or two, to delete one desert archer or to damage 2 desert archers severely to the point where they're one-shottable by anything. So use one of these and you can try to stall them out with barracks, but they're not gonna last for very long. I would recommend you to put your hero close to the desert archers, and when they shoot, you just move them slightly to the side, and you keep doing that until every one of them is dead. That's by far the most efficient way of dealing with them, because they don't do any damage and they're getting stalled. Sandhounds, basically the doggos. 35 HP, 1 to 3 physical damage, no resistances, but they're fast, and can dodge melee attacks. So anything besides barracks works, but the thing is that you also kinda need the barracks. Even though they are not the best at killing them, you still need one barrack at the back. In case of a Sandhound getting through, they're gonna be able to stall him, and then you can finish it off with reinforcements or your hero. The Warhound is basically the tougher version. He has 120 HP, medium magic resistance, 12 to 18 physical damage, and he also has fast movement speed. For these guys, usually archers are okay. I would say archers are probably the greatest ones at dealing with them. Mages, obviously, no. Artillery, not so much. If you have enough barracks, if you have enough stalling power in a choke point, artillery is not terrible, but for the most part, getting a high tier archer and a barrack just to stall them out for a bit should be enough to deal with them. Immortal. Now these guys are tough. 360 HP, 12 to 28 physical damage, medium armor, no magic resistance, and medium movement speed, but they also do cost 2 lives. And they return as a Fallen, which we're gonna speak of in a minute. So for these guys, what do you do? Well, just go for mostly magic damage. Usually a level 2 to 3 magic tower is enough. You can get a tier 4 if you want to make it easier, but usually in the early game, tier 2 to tier 3 mage should be enough to deal with them. Just make sure you have at least one barrack up to somewhat of a good level to keep them in place. And then we have the Fallen. These guys are pretty easy. 120 HP, 12 to 28 physical damage, but have no resistances. So they're not that problematic. Usually artillery is pretty solid at dealing with them. Get a high tier artillery and, you know, these guys are dead. Or you can just get any tower, really. Any tower works against the Fallen. The Executioners. Now these guys can insta-kill your units. The thing is that they only insta-kill 1 unit at a time, so it's not like if you have 6 units on top of him, he's gonna kill them all with 1 shot, no. He's gonna kill them one at a time. but he does have a pretty good attack speed, so he's gonna chop through them in no time. He has 2000 HP, 30 to 60 physical damage. That's only against champions. He can insta-kill your units, but he cannot insta-kill your hero, so you can keep him stalled out with your hero for a while. 30 to 60 damage may seem like a lot, but as long as you have someone who has decent durability, someone like Satan, Kaz, Ulrich, you name it, any melee champion, you should be able to stall him out for long enough to the point where you just exhaust his HP. And at one point, he's gonna die. You just have to stall him out with your hero, preferably. Or insta-kill him. Insta-kills also work very well against this guy. Bolt Barrage too. Moving on to the Giant Scorpion. Now, this guy is pretty easy. 500 HP, 12 to 18 physical damage, high armor, medium movement speed, they cost 2 lives, and they poison your allies. And poison deals true damage over time, so yeah, unfortunately, stalling them is not the best option. So just go for mages, it's pretty simple. Try to not stall them for too long though, because of the poison attack. They don't move, even though it says they have medium movement speed, it feels like they have slow movement speed. They don't really move that fast. So as long as you have a couple of mages that are like at least level 2, you should be able to deal with the scorpions with ease. Giant Wasp, the first flying enemy. How do you deal with them? Just don't use barracks against them, nor just go for archers and mages and reinforcements. The Wasp Queen, she's basically like a carrier. She has 400 health, medium movement speed. Unlike these guys, she's slower, but she does cost 5 lives. So if a Wasp Queen ends up sneaking by, rip 3 stars. Let's just leave it at that. Once you kill her though, around 5 wasps are gonna spawn, so keep that in mind. Usually you wanna burst her down before she gets too far into the map, so get something like a crossbow fort with the barrage ability upgraded, or an archmage. That should be enough to one-shot her, and then you can just take care of the little wasps with your other towers. The Dune Terrors. These guys are very unique because they're untargetable as long as you don't... you can't target them with anything, but if you stall them, they are vulnerable. So you need barracks against these guys. That's as simple as that. Get at least one barrack, maybe 2 preferably, and get some towers. They have no resistances to speak of, their damage is pretty low, and they only have 120 HP. So any tower works against them, just make sure you have at least 1 barrack to block them. The Sun Wraith. Now this guy is probably the worst out of the bunch in the first area of the game. He has 1000 HP, 30 to 60 physical damage, he has a ranged attack, and he spawns Fallen. But what they don't tell you is that he can also heal people. So yeah, he can heal himself, which is not good, it's no bueno. So how do you deal with this guy? Well, honestly, there's no such thing as like greatest way for him. I would say the best way is to just spawn kill him with a Rain of Fire and use your hero and reinforcements to finish him off if he survives. As for the Fallen that he summons, just make sure to have a decent artillery right near him, because the artillery should be able to take care of the Fallen, and your other towers can prioritize the Sun Wraith. You can also keep him stalled, so that way he doesn't summon anything, but he does deal a lot of damage, so it's kind of hard to stall this guy out. But for the most part, spawn killing him is the most efficient option. Jungle Spider. Pretty easy to deal with. He has a high magic resistance, 100 HP and 20 damage, and he moves fast. Just get a low tier barracks and get some archers. There you go. Jungle Matriarch. Now, she is kind of annoying because she spawns spiderlings, which are very fast. They die in one shot though by pretty much anything, so they're not that threatening, but they can easily sneak by. And she is pretty tough to deal with. 500 HP with 20 to 40 damage and high magic resistance with fast speed. She's kind of tough. I would say high tier archer is pretty good against her. Using artillery is also incredible, dwarf especially, because the dwarf can just one-shot her spiderlings. And after they're dead, you can just focus the Matriarch. Savage Warrior. He's basically like the Desert Thug, but much tougher. He has 250 HP, medium movement speed, and 10 to 20 physical damage with no resistances. However, if he kills the unit, he ends up healing himself, so yeah, you gotta keep that in mind. Usually, any tower works against them, just don't go for too many barracks against them. Moving on to Savage Hunter, they're basically the anti-barrack unit. they have ranged poison attacks, so their base damage is not that great, you know, it's pretty much the same as the Desert Archer, but they do apply poison, and the poison strikes through HP, so that's bad. Basically, just don't go for a lot of barracks. The only barrack that I will recommend if you want to use it against Savage Hunters is the Assassin's Guild, because they can turn invisible, and these guys are not going to be able to shoot them. So that's the only barrack that actually works against the Savage Hunters. The Witch Doctor. This guy, he's basically the healer. He has 600 HP, between 14 to 26 physical damage, no resistances, and medium movement speed. So he heals people around him every once in a while. How do you deal with him? Pretty much any tower. You can rather try to spawn kill him, you can separate him away from the group with your unit, aka your hero or reinforcements, or you can just go for artillery and try to kill all of his units before he can heal them. That also works. Earth Shaman. This guy's basically he's kind of like the Witch Doctor. The only difference is that instead of healing people, he gives them heavy armor, and he has high armor himself. So go for magic damage against this guy. Spirit Shaman, the opposite, he gives magic resistance, so if you see this guy, go physical damage. If you have both of them, artillery. Now Blood Trickster. Probably the worst enemy in this game, at least in my opinion. Maybe like, definitely in the top 3. 800 health, 1530 physical damage, but he does have a ranged attack that deals way more than that. He has no resistances and medium movement speed, but he can also raise fallen savages, so if any one of these two ends up dying near him, he's gonna resurrect them. So how do you deal with them? Spawn kill. Pretty easy. Just like the Sand Wraith, you wanna spawn kill him as soon as you can. Use your Rain of Fire, get rid of this guy immediately. He's a high target priority. Okay, now here is what he resurrects people as, the Savage Zombies. They're basically about 2 times as strong as the Savage Warriors. They have 500 health, and they do between 30 to 50 physical damage, and they do have medium movement speed, but they have no resistance. So, yeah, if you have a lot of these guys, you better have a Rain of Fire or some really good AoE ability. Gorillon. Basically the big guy. 2800 health, 40 to 80 area damage. And he doesn't do artillery damage though, so he just deals between 40 to 80 physical damage. And he has medium movement speed and costs 5 lives. Usually insta-kills work against them. Insta-kills are very efficient, or Bolt Barrage. Bolt Barrage with a totem of weakness, and this guy is pretty much a gunner. Polkai Rider. The most annoying flying enemy ever invented. They have only 250 HP, which is not a lot, but they do between 40 to 80 damage with their ranged attack. And yeah, it's bad. It's bad to deal with these guys. I would say mages are really efficient into them, or archers. Mages or archers. But then, after this guy ends up dying, unfortunately we don't get a picture of what the dismount is, but basically it's gonna release a Polkai bird. And this bird has, I believe, only 80 HP or so, but it does move faster. So after you kill this guy, you have to worry about the bird just flying through your exit, so keep that in mind. Try to stall them out, usually with the Tutata tactic, as I like to call it. Basically, just put your hero in front of them, wait for them to shoot, move your hero to the side, and keep doing that until all the Polkai Riders die. It's as simple as that. Parasites. Basically, these guys latch onto your units. They have a medium magic resistance, ignore their damage, they only have 140 HP. So artillery works incredibly well into them. Or Bolt Barrage is fine, but for the most part a Dwarf is more than enough to one-shot them. Because if you don't one-shot them and you end up killing one of your units, they're gonna turn into this, a Reaper. 500 health, 30 to 60 physical damage, medium magic resistance, and medium movement speed. How do you deal with them? Pretty simple. Usually archers. Archers are pretty efficient into them. Barracks can work, but you need a very high tier barrack in order to stall these guys out for a reasonable amount of time. But in general, if you have a lot of parasites, don't use barracks. I would say Necromancer is the best option against parasites, because if a parasite kills a skeleton, he's not going to resurrect as a Reaper, he's just gonna blow up. So there's that. Moving on, we have Saurian Raisin Wings. Okay, now my type of enemies. So these guys are not that bad, they only have 100 health, but they do move fast, so they are kind of like a medium-ish, medium threat, you know. The wasps, they basically are not a threat at all. These guys, they are a threat because they do damage. These guys, they don't do damage, they just have somewhat of a decent HP, so make sure to have some towers for them that can target flying enemies. The Sauron Quetzal is what you have to be worried about though. 500 health, fast movement speed, and he costs 3 lives, but he also can hatch a Razor Wings on his way. So yeah, how do you deal with him? Usually Bolt Barrage or Archmage with his 3 balls charged up. Sauron Brute, 300 health, 8 to 22 physical damage, medium movement speed, no resistances. The base enemy. Usually artillery is kinda good into them. If you get a high tier dwarf, you can delete them with ease. But for the most part, I would say mages are kind of good. But kind of. Usually a good mix of archers and mages is pretty good into the Saurian Brute Guards early. Later on, just get a bunch of artillery. Now for these guys though, the Mermaid Ons. For these guys, you really need some magic damage because they have medium armor, 800 health, and they do between 16 to 34 physical damage. And they also have a Vampiric Bite, which chunks out one of your units and they heal. After that, so you don't want to stall them out for very long, or at all. If you don't want them to heal, just don't stall them. They only use this attack after they get below a certain amount of HP, and then it starts going on cooldown and they use it again, so yeah, just burst them down with magic damage, or if you have high tier artillery, you can just kill them off slowly but surely. But usually mages are the best. The mages though are not good to the Blaze Fangs because they have high magic resistance, 600 HP, and even though they do between 18 to 22 damage, that's a lie, that's their melee damage. Their range damage is pretty much an insta-kill. It insta-kills your units if he hits you with a ranged attack, so stalling these guys is close to impossible. They can't insta-kill your hero though, so that's good, but they can insta-kill your reinforcements, so don't try that. Usually, high tier archers, that's how you deal with them, simple as that, and try to keep your barracks away from them. Saurian Night Scale. These guys are kinda like a tougher version of the Brute Guards. They have 50 more HP, they have between 28 to 42 physical damage, they have medium magic resistance, they move fast, and they can also go invisible. Once they get below a certain amount of HP, they're gonna turn themselves invisible, and you're not gonna be able to target them. The thing is though, artillery can still target them indirectly with its splash damage, so that's pretty good. And after you get to a certain point on the map, they come out of their invisibility and you can stall them again. Because when they're invisible, obviously you can't see them, so you can't block them. So try to kill them early on, so that way they don't become a problem and sneak to your backline. So that's pretty much what you need to do, just damage them early, so that way they can waste their invisibility and they're gonna be visible halfway through the map or so. Saurian Darter. These guys are pretty annoying. They're not that much of a threat, but they are annoying. They're basically Sauron Brute Guards, but the difference is that they have a little bit less HP, but they move faster, and then they can teleport. Whenever they receive damage, they just teleport. So yeah. The teleport is not infinite though. They can only do it a certain amount of times before they get too far into the map, so it's not like they have infinite amount of teleporting abilities. So eventually they'll run out of them. Usually try to hit them early on, so that way they can waste their teleport and it can go on cooldown. That's usually how I deal with them. And if you see them, just make sure you have a barrack around the exit, so that way if somehow one of them gets through, the barracks are gonna give you enough time to stall them. The Sauron Brute. Now this guy is chunky. 4400 health. That's a lot of HP. 60 to 120 area damage. So this guy chunks. He has well, actually speaking, no, he doesn't have a AoE attack. That's something that I forgot. He does have medium movement speed though and costs 5 lives, so you don't want this guy getting to your exit because he has an area attack and he has a cool energy whips. And this attack basically, he hits 3 times a unit and it deals true damage. So yeah, you don't want anyone to get hit by that. How do you deal with this guy? Usually spawn killing him. Try to spawn kill him with an insta-kill. Try to weaken him by using Rain of Fire early on. Or you can just stall him out with the Twister, with the Tornado. You can stall him out like that. Melee units don't really work really well into him. Assassins fail to stall this guy for long enough. And Templars, obviously, they're not reliable enough. So try to stall him out by alternative means, and just don't let him get too close. That's pretty much it. Saurian Savant. Now, for this guy, I know I've said it a couple of times for other enemies, but that's the best way to deal with them. Spawn, kill. Spawn, kill. Because 1000 HP, 34 to 66 damage, that's their melee damage only though. Their ranged attack is much stronger. Medium magic resistance, and they can summon Saurians. They can summon Darters, Brute Guards, and Night Scales. That's pretty much what they can summon. But the amount of summons that they get is random, so you don't want to risk that. Just stall them out with reinforcements. If there's more than one, just group them up and rain of fire them all. If they're coming on separate paths though, rain of fire one of them, and for the second one just try to stall him out with your hero and chop down his HP with your basic attacks, abilities, and your reinforcements. And a tower if possible. But yeah, that's pretty much how you deal with these guys. You don't want to let them unchecked for too long, because they can definitely overwhelm you in seconds. Lesser Efforty, whatever this is. This is basically the unit that Nazaru spawns. Honestly, these guys are pretty pathetic. 250 HP, 30 to 60 damage though, so their basic attack is strong, but they have only 250 health with no armor or resistances. They have no resistance, so you can kill them with anything. He doesn't spawn too many of them, so yeah. Speaking of Nazaru, he's the first boss. He is pretty easy to deal with. He has only 8000 HP. He deals between 500 to 800 damage, but the thing is that he can insta-kill your units. Because after a unit gets close to him, he just snaps his finger and the unit is gone. So he insta-kills units. AKA, you can't stall this guy. But the good thing is that he is very slow, so you can just kill him very, very easily. All you need is just some bolt barrages all the way up to tier 3, or some archmages, and this guy's gonna go down faster than a blink of an eye. The Mandrel, the Mandrelos, whatever these things are. Basically, they're the unit that Quinson spawns. And they're much tougher, 1200 health, 50 to 100 damage with medium movement speed. These guys are pretty tough. So how do you deal with them? Well, just try to stall them out somehow. Usually assassins work pretty well into them because of their dodge capability. Templars are fine, but they're not quite ideal. I would say just go for assassins to stall them out and take them down with whatever towers you have. As for the boss, he's a little bit tougher than Nazaru. He does have 4000 extra HP, but his damage is lower. The thing is that he deals area damage, so he can hit multiple units at once. And he is pretty slow. And honestly, he is pretty meh. Just deal with him the same way that I told you to deal with Nazaru. Go for some crossbow force with the barrage ability and just archmages if you want. Now here we go for Umbra. Now this guy is pretty annoying because he does have a lot of spawning phases. Basically, if you kill him once, you have to kill him again. You have to kill him, I believe, 4 times or so, maybe 5. And what is the problem with him? Well, after you kill him, quote unquote, small pieces of him are gonna spread around the map, and once they spread, you have to kill at least 2 of them. After you kill 2 of them, he's gonna have less HP, but he's still gonna be able to do stuff. He can destroy your towers at random, and he can summon these guys, the Shade Elementals. And they are kind of terrifying. 450 HP, 120 to 170 physical damage. They have no resistances, but still, they are a threat. Because remember that this guy can destroy towers. So if you run out of towers to build, these guys can easily just chop down your barracks and get through them. So keep these guys in check for as long as you can. Now let's move on to the Green Fin. Honestly, kinda meh. He's annoying, but he's not that much of a threat. 450 HP may seem like a lot, which it is, but honestly these guys can be stalled for quite a long time. They only do between 6 to 14 physical damage. But the problem is that they're fast and they can throw nets, and throwing a net basically disables your unit from working. He can still stall them, but he's not gonna be able to fight back or anything. It's kind of like a stun basically, so keep that in mind. Honestly, artillery is by far the best way to deal with them. Get a necromancer and a barrack though, because these guys, they can take a while to kill, so having the more stalling power you have against them, the better. Speaking of stalling power, there's the Devil Tide, which is a stronger green fin. 500 HP, 10 to 20 physical damage, and they have medium armor. And they can also throw nets. The thing is that they can also be dismounted by these shark-looking things. But they can only come out on, I believe, Storm Atoll, so you're not gonna see them coming out of these sharks on any level other than Storm Atoll. So for the most part, they don't really come out of them, but you can see them at one specific level. How do you deal with them? Well, just go for necromancers, get some barracks, and wait for them to die. It's as simple as that. Red Spine. This guy is quite annoying. 1700 HP, 25 to 35 physical damage, and he has a ranged attack. He has no resistances, but he does have medium movement speed and he costs 1 life. So how do you deal with these guys? Well, the problem is not really their base damage, it's their ranged attack. Their ranged attack is pretty devastating, so I would say you can use reinforcements to make them waste their ranged attack, or you can move your barracks directly into them, so that way they don't even have a chance of using their ranged attack. And from that point on, it's just building towers and trying to kill them. It doesn't matter what tower you build, they have no resistances, so anything works. I would say Bolt Barrage is by far the most efficient option if you want to kill them fast, though. Now we're moving on to the Black Surge. Oh my god, the Black Surge. I hate this thing. I hate this crab monstrosity. 1200 HP, 30 to 50 physical damage, high armor, slow speed, but he can disable towers, and he can disable them for almost infinite amount of times. The ability has barely any cooldown, that's the problem with it. He can disable towers constantly, so trying to kill him is gonna take forever. Usually Rain of Fire is the best idea though. Even if you try to stall him, he is still not, he still can block, what am I saying? Even if you stall him with units, he's still gonna be able to disable towers, so don't think that stalling him is gonna do you any good. And then he has Invulnerability, which means that after he gets below a certain amount of HP, he's just gonna go into his shell, move very slowly across the map, he's gonna regenerate all of his HP and he's gonna pop back out eventually. So in order to prevent this from happening, usually insta-kills are good, or trying to burst him down before he even has a chance to go under his shell. It is pretty hard though. I would say if you face off a lot of these enemies, good luck. Bluegill. These guys are iffy. They have 2400 HP, 60 to 120 physical damage, that's their melee attack by the way, so they're pretty hard to stall, as you can see. Their ranged attack is actually weaker than their melee attack, which I find this to be weird, but you know, it is what it is. They're immune to magic damage, that's their main thing. You cannot damage them with magical ability, with magic damage. You just have to go physical damage. So, Bolt Barrage, by far the best option against them. And you can also go for Totem of Spirits because it will disable their ability to summon storms. Basically, summoning storms means that they're gonna summon these dark clouds, and if they are in the right position, you're not gonna be able to click on your tower, which is bad if they're because they can completely cover your tower with the clouds. On top of that, the clouds do damage over time to your units, and they also heal their nearby the allies of the Bluegill by a certain amount of HP per second. So to say that these guys are annoying will be another statement. Just try to burst them down with a crossbow fort, and if you want to make it even easier, just go for a tribal axe thrower with a Totem of Spirits to silence them. Bloodshell. He is basically the opposite of the Bluegill. He is pretty much unkillable by physical damage. He has 3200 health, so he does have more HP. 100 to 120 physical damage, pretty much the same as, well, not the same as the Bluegill, but, you know, he does have he can do, his highest damage is the same as the Bluegill. Great armor, so they have 90% armor, physical damage is practically tickling them. They have no magic resistance, they have medium movement speed, they cost 5 life, and they're also immune to artillery attacks, so artillery, it's a big no-no. You can still use the Cordial on the Dwarf, and that's gonna insta-kill one of them, but usually assassins are pretty good into them with the sneak attack, but you need to spend a lot of money on the assassins in order to get their counter attack up and then their sneak attack all the way up. So normally I would say mages are kinda good into them, I mean, they are obviously good, but you need some high tier mages in order to deal with the Bloodshell. Thankfully, they don't show up that early, so you're gonna have enough time to build up your defenses by the time they come out. Leviathan, the most underwhelming boss in the game, right after Nazaru. 14,000 HP. You may think that this is a lot of HP, but in reality, that's all he has. He has HP. 500 to 800 damage. You may think that's a lot, but he actually doesn't do damage. He doesn't damage your units. He has slow speed, no resistances. The only thing that he does is he disables some of your towers every once in a while. That's pretty much how he does. And there's the units accompanying him get progressively harder the further he gets through the map, so there's something difficult about him. It's the enemies that accompany him. That's why he is a little bit harder than Nazaru, and because Sun Citadel is by far one of the hardest levels in this game overall. But honestly, this guy, you can kill him with just reinforcements, Rain of Fire, and the Shrine if you want to. It's that easy. It's just gonna take a little bit. Moving on to the last several enemies. Zombie. Reused enemy, I'm not gonna talk about him. We talked about him in the original Kingdom Rush, so you already know how to deal with him. Artillery. Go. Another reused enemy. The only difference, they have a little bit of a different stats, I think, but that's about it. They also have a moon effect. If you don't know what the moon effect is, basically, whenever you get to this area right here, where my cursor is, there's gonna be full moon every once in a while, and whenever a full moon comes, these guys are gonna move faster. So that's their main thing. Bat. Reused enemy. 75 HP. They move fast, and they move even faster once the moon is full. So yeah, they can just zoom across the map. Just get some you know, something for flying enemies. Werewolf. Reused enemy number 4. Bruh. So yeah, these guys, they're slightly different from the original Kingdom Rush, but not by all that much. Just don't use too much magic damage against them, and if you're gonna stall them, make sure to have at least tier 3 barracks. Abomination, oh my god, why are there so many reused enemies? 2500 HP, 45 to 55 physical damage, low armor, and he moves slow. And he explodes on that. How do we deal with him? Usually insta-kills. But the thing is that in Frontiers, these guys end up showing up more often, so insta-kills may or may not be the best option sometimes. Occasionally it's better to go for an insta-kill, but in Frontiers it's actually better to burst these guys down rather than insta-killing them. So usually getting something like a Tribal Axe Tower with a Totem of Weakness, combining it with a Bolt Barrage, and maybe your hero and reinforcements should be enough to burst this guy down before he can go anywhere or do anything of importance. But yeah, you can try to burst them down or insta-kill them. Either way, it's gonna work. Lycan. Do I even need to talk about this guy? He's a reused enemy. If you want to learn how to deal with him, then go to my original video on the original Kingdom Rush. But here, I don't know, just don't use too many units to stall these guys. You can still get one like level 3 to 4 barrack, but keep in mind when the full moon is up, these guys have a chance of transforming one of your units into a werewolf, so beware of that. Ghost. How do you deal with ghosts? Easy, just go for some magic damage. They're immune to physical damage, so go for magic damage. And they don't have a lot of HP, so tier 2 to 3 mages should be enough. And then once you get to tier 4 mages, these guys are no longer a threat. Phantom Warriors though, they are a little bit more of a threat. They have 1000 HP, 50 to 90 damage, and they have Dread Aura around them. Basically, they do damage over time to units that are close to them. And it's true damage, so yay. How do you deal with them? Well, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is just get some high tier mages. You don't really need to stall these guys, it's not necessary. But just try to go for tier 4 mages and if you need to stall them, use your reinforcements. Don't waste your hero for that, because even if your hero has high armor, these guys are gonna shred right through it with their Dread Aura. And also, what was this thing called? The Furnace Blast can affect the Phantom Warriors and the Ghosts, but it only occurs every once in a while, so it's not a consistent way of dealing with ghosts. But just putting it out there. Vampiressa. Vampiressa. The most sus enemy in the game. Because I mean, look at that design. Tell me there is something sus about it. Anyway, they have 1000 HP, they do between 20 to 40 damage, and they can drain enemies. They drain their health and they heal for it. And they have high magic resistance. You only see them on one level, but they do come in small hordes. And once the boss comes, they come in really gigantic swarms. How do you deal with them? Well, you get a secondary champion on that level named Lucrezia, and her ranged she has an AoE attack that almost every time one-shots Vampiressas. So just try to group them up, move Lucrezia there, and let her use her AoE attack, and they should be dead almost all the time. You can also use archers and high-tier artillery to deal with them. Artillery may seem like a weird choice, but once they group up, it will be efficient to go for like artillery. But for the most part, archers and artillery, that's how you beat these guys, alongside Lucrezia. Vassal. Vassal. What about this guy? Well, the only annoying thing about him is that he has multiple phases. He has his first phase, where he just slowly marches towards the exit. He has 8475 HP, which is a pretty specific number. He deals some damage. He also can drain. He has the ability to drain units, kinda like the Vampiressas, and he heals, so try to not stall him if you can. Usually a good way to stall him without actually using any units is the waste disposal. Getting a waste disposal up to tier 3, this guy can't move at all. He's just gonna very slowly trying to move to the exit, and you can damage him with anything. Usually Bolt Barrage though. Bolt Barrage is incredibly good against almost any boss in the game. And once you kill him, he goes to his second phase. He has the same amount of HP, but he does have this aura around him, which you can see right here. And this aura basically kills all of your units, so he's literally unstallable. You can't stall him at all. I think only Templars can stall him for like a split second before they die, so yeah, you don't want to stall him out once he's in his second phase. Just try to burst him down. It's not that bad, he doesn't have that high amount of HP, and he moves slow, so yeah, you should be able to kill him. Saurian Dead Coil, the enemy that everyone loves. 500 HP, 12 to 22 physical damage on their basic attack, but their ranged attack deals true damage, and they can shoot from really far away. They're literally the sniper of this game. So how do you deal with them? Well, you don't want to use barracks, alright? Barracks are gonna die in like one shot of the Dead Coil. So how do you deal with them? Well, because considering the level that they come on, usually the best way to deal with them is pretty simple. Just try to group them up. You can sacrifice some of your units, it's fine. If you have barracks, it's not the end of the world, but your barracks are not gonna be effective. So what you can do is you can build some like low-level barracks to group them up a little bit, and then you can use other towers like Battle Mecha or Rain of Fire, or maybe even what else is a good idea? Bolt Barrage to kill them off. That's usually how you deal with them. Just try to kill them early, so that way they don't become a problem later. That's pretty much the best way to deal with them. And lastly, haven't seen you in a while, brother, Zizzy. So how do you deal with this guy? Very easy. The only difference, you want to use Archmages. It's as simple as that. Archmages equal a dead lizard, pretty much. Because unlike any other boss in the game, he has medium armor, so Bolt Barrage is not going to be as effective against him, so just go for a bunch of Archmages, maybe a Battle Mecha in between to slow him down, and that's about it. You don't really need barracks against this guy because he has an ability that pretty much damages all units on the screen, including flying units, so even Ashbite and Boneheart can get hurt by that. And he eats up your units, so yeah, he basically has an insta-kill. That's pretty much how you beat every single enemy in this game. They're not as difficult as you think, you just have to figure out the correct way to deal with them. As long as you know what tower works against said enemy, you can pretty much set up a perfect defense with relative ease. So yeah guys, well, with that out of the way, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you everybody so much for watching, I appreciate you for sticking around to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future, and while you're at it, drop a like on the video, it means a lot to me. And I will see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy, over and out.